don't know why, but it's wonky today. I'm trying to straighten it out, and then I press the go live button, and I just thought, here we go, here we go. Come on. These tripods drive me round the bend. Okay. Slightly on a wonk. Okay. That's about as good as it's going to get. It's slightly wonky. So, hello. How are you? I'm Connie. I'm from Faff Designs. I am one hot mess today. I haven't stopped. But we are going to be painting glass today. Glass. So, this piece behind, this bench, which I am working on at the minute, and it will be a YouTube video on my channel. So if you want to see how this turns out, you need to subscribe to my channel because it is looking beautiful. Hi, Sharon. So to go with that, as you may or may not know, I do... Oh, thank you, Lisa. I'm a bit of a hot mess at the minute. Hair's crazy. Haven't stopped all day. And I know that it's early for you guys, isn't it? But it's not here. It's 2 o'clock in the afternoon. And yeah. Anyway, the bench that I'm working on is going to be this week's video on my YouTube channel. To go with it, you know how I've got a love-and-hate relationship with staging. I like it when it goes right. I hate it when I can't get it right. It drives me around the bend. So I always think of staging quite early on in the process because I sell all my furniture, and obviously pictures are what people are going to look at, and that's going to sell the piece, hopefully. So I think a picture is really important. Staging is really important. It's taken me years and years to get to the stage where I'm at, and I'm not even going to say perfect staging because it's not. I like staging when it goes right. So I try and think of the staging kind of earlier on in the project rather than right at the end and then have a mad dash and try and find things that will work with it. I am kind of thinking about that as I'm going along, what I can use, the kind of style that I'm painting. Obviously, if I'm painting something, you know, mid-century modern, which doesn't happen very often but does happen every now and again, I'm not going to be using like rustic props or anything like really old and rustic and vintage. If I'm painting something rustic like this and colourful and a little bit boho, what I tend to do is tone my accessories down and use more neutral shades of accessories, or sometimes I'll use colours that are kind of opposite on the colour spectrum. So this piece is pine behind, and you can see where I've slightly distressed around the kind of framework. It's actually like a pine settle thing. So it's not orange, but it obviously that pine is kind of coming through the paint, and I am going to be distressing it a little bit further. So my thoughts process is I'm going to create a cluster of kind of terracotta vibe vases to hopefully stage with it. Sometimes I have these plans, I do these things, I put it all together and it looks awful. And I think, well, that didn't look how it was going to look in my head. And I was looking at terracotta vases online to buy some to go with it, because I think it'll look really nice and rustic. And obviously the orange was going to make the blues pop. So that's going to hopefully work in my head. And then I thought, I'm not going to go and spend £20 upwards on a terracotta vase. I have stuff here that I've picked up from charity shops or that I've painted, and sometimes I'll repaint props to go with certain projects. So if I was using, if I wanted blue props, and I might go and paint something that I've already got blue, if that makes sense. So that's what I do. I quite often kind of, not for every project, not for all projects. I don't paint stuff for all projects, but a prime example is that photo frame behind. If I can find ornate photo frames like that, I normally grab them. They're normally a couple of quid from charity shops, and then I paint them to kind of just add a little bit of pop of colour. So that was staged with the piece that I've just finished, which is the turquoise stenciled thing. I'm looking here because it is literally right here. So it's it was a sort of like a turquoisey kind of stenciled, and that was the colour that I painted on the inside of the cabinet. So I thought it'd be nice to tie it all together to paint the photo. That was previously painted in hot pink. So I just thought I'd paint that quickly. It literally took 2 seconds, and it just sometimes kind of brings the photo together. So here's what I'm thinking for this. This is glass. It was clear glass. I got this from a charity shop. I think it may have been maybe £3. It's a really nice chunky glass. And I have broken my own rules here. I slick stick the second coat of this morning. So Slick Stick is an adhesion primer. Slick Stick is a primer that allows you to paint surfaces like glass, plastic, metal, anything that's a really slippy, glossy surface that ordinarily you would struggle to get your paint to stick to. Slick Stick is the one. You can see how nice and chunky that glass is there. So I slick stick this, the first coat yesterday, the second coat is only this morning. So I am breaking I'm not breaking my rules, I'm breaking the rules. So the best advice for Slick Stick is to paint your piece using 2 coats of Slick Stick primer. Let it dry for 24 hours before you even start to paint your piece. So I blasted this with a hairdryer because, like I say, it's been maybe a few hours since I painted it first thing this morning in the second coat. I meant to do it last night and I completely forgot. So this has only been sat a few hours. So that's rule broken number 1. But if you do use Slick Stick and you don't allow it to dry for the proper amount of time, be prepared for it to not work. Slick Stick is one of the products that you do need to kind of follow the rules because it's water-based, and I'll tell you what happens if you don't let it dry properly. Because it's water-based, what happens is when you apply your paint on here too soon, it can reactivate the product underneath it, which is obviously Slick Stick, and it'll just pull off. So that's what will happen. I have blasted this with a hairdryer and hope that it'll stick. So if it doesn't, it's because I haven't done my job properly, not because it's not working, if that makes sense. But we're going to try. We're going to try it out. I've also got, which I'm not going to paint today, a larger one, which I have Slick Sticked also. So that was yellow. This is a modern vase. I bought this quite a while ago when it was yellow. Not the one for me. So I'll Slick Stick that, and I'll be painting that as well. And then hopefully it'll go with it. So we're not just going to give it a plain terracotta finish. Oh, no, 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 no. We're going to give it something, you know how terracotta goes a little bit faded, and it also like kind of goes a little bit white on the surface. I don't know why it does that. Is it because it's terracotta? I don't know. But it does. I've got some really old terracotta pots. You know what I mean. It doesn't just, it's not one, you know, new terracotta is orange, isn't it? Vintage terracotta, when it's been a bit weathered and a bit kind of subject to a few years worth of abuse, you know how it goes. So we're going to try and replicate that, because this piece that I'm painting now is obviously quite rustic. So let's have a go. Let's have a go. Don't know how this is going to turn out, but we'll try. So the main 2 colours that I'm going to use is terracotta. Dixie Belle have literally got a colour called terracotta. So obviously that is going to be the colour of terracotta, isn't it? And I'm also going to use pine cone just to deepen it in areas slightly. So, I should have opened this beforehand. There we go. I'm just going to put some on this plate so that I'm not dipping my brush into a pot with a different colour on the bristles. So a little bit of terracotta on the plate. A little bit of pine cone also on there, just a little bit. I didn't want anything too dark. And you can, if you want quite a textured finish, you can add sea spray in with this. Do I want sea spray? Where is sea spray? Oh, I've put it back. I tried to be tidy and put things back, and then they're not within arm's reach when I actually want them. Let's see. Do we want... No. Let's not use sea spray this time. So, 2 colours on here. I have stippled on the slick stick. So if you can see, if I just turn it that way, I did stipple it on. So I haven't painted this in those kind of strokes. I've stippled it on the surface. So there is a little bit of texture, little bit of texture on there, but not too much. So there's my brushes. I'll use this brush. This is the Belle brush. So why am I so indecisive today? What is going on? Yeah, we'll start off with the Belle brush. So, can you come closer so you can see what I'm doing? You can't see me, but that's not a bad thing. There we go, a little bit closer so you can see. I swear, basically my life exists of, at the minute, trying to get decent camera angles to film stuff, go live, make sure I've got a good shot of what I'm doing for my YouTube channel. Honestly, it's a logistical nightmare, especially because I've got such a small space. It's basically what I do most of the day, is just moving my camera around, so I'm trying to get a good angle on stuff. It drives me around the bend. So, this terracotta colour covers really, really well. It covers better than Florida Orange because it's a more muted tone. Florida Orange takes a couple of coats, normally 3. When I say a couple, I mean 3, to cover, because it's such a vibrant tone. There's not much white pigment in it because it's super bright. So some of those kind of colours can take an extra coat to cover. But terracotta isn't one of those. It covers really well. You can see how well it's covering the white primer. So Slick Stick, which is the primer that I've used, only comes in white. Unlike Boss, which is the other primer from Dixie Belle, that comes in a couple of different colours. That comes in clear, white and grey. But you can tint Slick Stick if you want to. I tend not to. It's just not something that I like to do. I trust my life with Slick Stick. Slick Stick is, without doubt, the best adhesion primer that I've ever used. And I've used it a lot. I've also used other brands of adhesion primer in my day, in my painting life, and they've let me down. But Slick Stick has never, touch wood, let me down. It's fabulous. So for that reason, I tend not to mess with it, but you can tint it. So Amy from AJ's Vintage Designs, is it AJ Vintage Designs? Have I just made that up? Amy, anyway, from AJ's Vintage Designs. I don't know if I've just made that bit up. She tints her Slick Stick. If she's using a dark colour over it, you can put a tiny smidge of paint in it. But like I say, not something that I mess with. I don't dabble. Don't dabble with what works. So I'm just getting the same brush and adding some of the pine cone, but then taking the excess off on the paper plate next to it. So can you see I've taken the majority off? It's obviously going to mix with the orange because the orange is still wet, the terracotta is still wet, but it's just going to deepen the orange a little bit. Again, I'm just stippling it in just to kind of get a little bit of texture on the surface. How is everyone doing, by the way? How is everyone on this Grand Tuesday? So can you see? Can you see there how it's kind of almost a little bit mottled, and it just deepens the terracotta ever so slightly. If anybody follows me on social media, you'll know that my van blew up for the second time on our way down to Devon on our family holiday in mid-August. We still haven't got it back. The engine's been rebuilt. It was due to go in this week, and the garage where our van is currently at, the person that's putting the engine back in, our mechanic, his unit got broken into last night. It got ram-raided by a big truck, and our van was in it, and they don't know if it's caused any damage to the van. And it's going to be months before they can get a new door put on because it's so badly damaged. So I'm doing great. That van is cursed. It is cursed. So anyway, if you don't follow me, that story will be that story will be a completely random story for you. Rebuilder for the second time, Lisa. Yeah. So we had the engine reconditioned because it's a 15-year-old van, but it's a VW. They hold the value quite well. So we thought we'll get the engine rebuilt. This is not connected to furniture paint in any way, shape or form, but it's almost a kind of therapy for me to tell you this. Ram raided is when they've like rammed into it with a big truck. Like it was a roller shutter door thing, a metal one, like in a car garage, and they rammed into it so that they could open it and get all the tools out. And in the process of ramming in that door, our van was the other side. So we paid out quite a lot of money to get the engine reconditioned. This is going back before we went away, sort of early summer. Then we set off on holiday towing our caravan, which should have taken maybe 4 to 5 hours to get on holiday. We broke down halfway there, ended up taking us 15 hours, plus a hire car, plus the money to tow it back home here. And I've been without it ever since. Now, bearing in mind, that is that's our family vehicle. We use it for everything. Dogs, kids, bikes, towing, furniture, work, commuting, all those things. The kids have swimming lessons. I can't walk everywhere because I live out in the middle of nowhere, kind of. Public transport is an absolute no-go where I live. It's shocking. So we've been without it for that long, and then we have this little nugget of information falling today. Oh yeah, by the way, the garage has been broken into and your vehicle might be damaged. Excellent. I think so, Sharon, too. I've got to the stage, where I'm convinced that is cursed. So this time last year, not quite, someone rammed into me and it was their fault completely, but I was without it for several months while that was getting fixed because it was quite a bad smash. And yeah, I'm at the stage now where I'm just going to go and get a new car. I'm going to go and get a new car, and when the van comes back, I'm just going to sell it, I think, because I can't deal with it anymore. Paint therapy. Yeah, you guys listening to me waffle on about my car is also my therapy. So that covered super quick and easy. And now just going to repeat the other side. So back in with the orange. I've got a dog looking at me as well. Can I help you? It's very rude to stare. Missy. I don't know why I'm talking to her. She's deaf. So I'm going to do the same to this side. Also, I am aware that there's massive, bigger problems going on right now in the world than me not having my vehicle. But I feel like I'm with friends and I feel like I can vent. So, yeah, first world problems. That's the saying, isn't it? And most annoyingly, the thing that it's preventing me from doing is actually working, because the second car that we've got is very small. It's Andy's work car. and you can't fit furniture in it. So I've got furniture sat in my storage units, which is not that far away, and I can't get it. But I did get this pine settle in the back of Andy's car. I'm not sure how. I did it on my own. It's very heavy and it's solid pine. But the sheer determination to get this back here, because I am sick of painting small pieces. Can't do it. Small side tables, chairs. Ugh. Just give me something big and chunky and rustic, and I'm good to go. So if you can't tell, I'm a big fan of painting larger pieces of furniture. I am not a massive fan of painting small items. I mean, they've got their place, and they are a bonus because they are normally done really quick. Oh, I've missed that comment. Just flashed up and then went again. But yeah, smaller pieces are just annoy me. And I think the reason I don't like them as well is because they take a long time. Well, I struggle selling because I sell online. 97% of my stuff sells online, and I offer shipping all over the UK. So shipping's quite expensive these days, but you can kind of justify shipping for a large sideboard or a buffet or whatever you call it, whereas a sort of a small side table or an odd chair or a little stool, I don't know, it feels harder to justify the shipping prices of that. So I always think people are put off by smaller items online. That's just my personal findings. Might not be the same for you. And if you've got like a booth or a shop, smaller pieces are actually very good because it's good to have a variety, isn't it? But I don't have a booth and I don't have a shop. I sell online only. So yeah, smaller pieces are much harder to shift for me. So I'm just working in, I'm just talking to you about stuff without telling you what I'm actually doing. Just working in the pine cone again and just leaving it so that it's not properly mixed together, so that there's sort of like a mottled effect on the surface. And that kind of just gives you, instead of that pure terracotta, it gives you a bit more of a sort of vintagey vibe. Maybe it's, you know, a bit dirty, a bit aged. Missy, stop. Okay, so I'm going to blast this with a hairdryer because I've got something else I want to do to it after this. Bear with. Did you hear that? Oh, like I was blowing on the top. It was the hairdryer. Just going to quickly do the other side. So this is the side that I did first, so technically it should be pretty much dry anyway. So that is what happens when you don't... Oh, I've missed a bit at the bottom as well. That's what happens when you don't let your slick stick dry properly. It started coming off there because I knocked it with a hairdryer. That is why you should always allow your slick stick to dry properly. Okay, I'm really going to quickly do a second coat on that. Anybody got any questions? About anything. Doesn't have to be furniture painting. Keep it clean though. Keep it clean, people. I know what you lot are like. I have to keep looking around to make sure the comments, I don't miss any. Because I don't know how to, once they go, they flash up for a few seconds and then they go. And then I don't know how to get them back. I don't even know if there is a way to get them back. If anybody knows that, then let me know. Are we looking a bit terracotta-y already? I mean, does it? Does it? I hope so. Right, I'm going to quickly blast this and then I'll show you what I'm going to do to kind of give it that aged look that terracotta gets. Oh no! What nightmare, I just saw a comment and then it's gone again. Oh. I mean, if you can be bothered to retype it out. I did miss that comment. I think they pop up again if that person comments again. Are you using Terra Paint or Terracotta Chalk Mineral Paint? Sorry, this is Terracotta Chalk Mineral Paint. So both of these colours that I'm using are Chalk Mineral Paint. So that one's Terracotta and this one is Pine Cone. And I'm just using them with the same brush, stippling the terracotta on the surface and then adding the Pine Cone, same brush, double dipping over the top whilst the terracotta is still wet. And this is the kind of look it gives you. So it's a bit more of a mottled look, and I'm going to have to finish the bottom off camera because I've not made a very good effort at the bottom. But this is, I don't sell anything like this. I don't sell small pieces because I don't have a shop, like small home decor. This is just going to be for staging purposes, to use for staging with this bench when I finish this bench later on this week. So if you want to see how the vases look with the bench, if it works out in my head how I think it's going to work out, how I hope it's going to work out, you need to subscribe to my YouTube channel where I will be popping this video when it is done. So the last thing, and I've done this before, I have done this terracotta look before, you can add more brown or less brown or no brown depending on your personal preference. So if you wanted it more kind of truer terracotta colour, you don't have to put any brown in it at all. Or if you wanted to make it look a little bit grungier and dirtier, you can add more brown, or you could add a slightly darker brown, and obviously that's just going to deepen the terracotta a little bit more. So the last thing I'm going to do is get some fluff. Now, I very rarely use white, and this is quite old. You can see how thick and congealed that is, and that's because I am a bad person and I don't clean the rim when I put my lid on. Water has evaporated out of this paint and it's become thicker. you can just add water back in here, stir it, and you're good to go. But you can also add green for a mossy effect. Yes, you absolutely can, and that looks awesome as well. So, white. I use white, like I say, very rarely. Maybe a bit of dry brushing, maybe a bit of stenciling. So for that purpose, this thicker consistency is actually pretty good. So I'm going to dry brush with this bad boy. This is the Best Dang brush, and it's good for dry brushing because it's got a flat surface. Can you see? It's not tapered, it's completely flat. Unlike this one, it's got a slightly kind of, it's not tapered, it's not got a point, but it's slightly kind of domed. Also, the other one, which is, come here, the French tip. This is worn down because this is a very well used brush, but this is also tapered. Dry brushing is really good if you've got a flat brush, because what you just want to do with dry brushing, and what else do I need, is just catch the surface of the texture for the purpose of this anyway. Usually if you're dry brushing, you want to highlight something. So that could be like the carved details of something. It could be high points of texture. It could be trim work around a door or something like that. So generally, that's what dry brushing is going to do. It's going to highlight the sort of higher areas. So very similar to stenciling, you need to add some on your brush and then take it off so that you aren't left with a lot of paint. Because if you put a lot of paint on here, it's just going to obviously look white, and there's going to be a big pool of white on. So the best thing to do with dry brushing is work it up gradually, because it's easier to add more than it is to take it away. So if you go in with a whole load of white, you're going to have to put terracotta back on to make it stop being so white, if that makes sense. So what you almost want to do is, when you rub it on your hand, is barely get any paint on your hand at all. There's quite a bit on there still, on the side where I've just... So that's hardly anything, it's dry. And you want a dry brush for it as well, because that's going to make the paint not go as far, if that makes sense. So all I'm going to do is start adding, and I have done this with white wax, but it doesn't quite have the same look because it's not as pigmented as white paint. But if you wanted a more kind of subtle look, then you can use white wax. And like I say, just build it up really gradually. The good thing about dry brushing with a natural bristle brush, and this goes for stenciling as well, is it starts to, the natural bristles absorb some of the water. So because the bristles are porous on natural bristle brushes, it absorbs the water, and that's usually why stencil brushes are made from natural bristles as opposed to synthetic, because it doesn't hold on to the water as well. It absorbs the water, it gives you a drier paint consistency, and therefore gives you a better finish when you're stenciling or dry brushing, if that makes sense. Again, this is a personal preference as to how much white you add. But you know what I mean, when terracotta, it kind of, I don't know if it's because it's the sun or the water or just age in general, but you know what I mean, when it kind of has that white kind of look to it, almost like a film over the top. Does anybody know what that is? Is it the terracotta drying out? Anybody know why terracotta does that? Because I don't. I just know that I've got some really nice old terracotta pots, and they have like this faded, like white kind of look to them. So I'm just catching the handle and the rim there. And obviously the more times you go over something with a dry brush, maybe a mineral build-up. Yeah, it could be, like the salts or something in the water coming out. Obviously it's clay, isn't it? I don't know, but it just does, and it looks cool. So the more times you run over something with a dry brush, although there's barely white could be a bit of mildew starting to develop. Yeah, it could do. Huh. I don't know. I'm going to have to Google this when I get off. There's hardly any pigment on here at all. I mean, if I was to put this on something, there's not even any paint coming off on my hand. That's how little paint that there is. The best thing to do, like I say, is just to build it up gradually. So where you really want to highlight some areas, the more times you go over it with the brush that's barely got any paint on it, you're going to slightly build up. Can you see how it's just caught it around the rim? The lighting is terrible in here today. And can you see just around that handle? Obviously, I need to blend it better there. But can you see how white that bit has gone? Because I've just continuously... The more you do it... But it's very subtle, is dry brushing. And then the rest of it, again, it's personal preference, because if you look at some old terracotta stuff, it is actually quite white. So you could just keep going with it. Or you could maybe kind of blend it upwards or blend it downwards. It's a personal thing. But I had the cheapest vase, and I haven't got it to show you because it's in my living room, but I had the cheapest vase from a charity shop. It was very dated and an awful, awful cream colour. Not the nice cream. It was like a yellowy cream, like very cheap. I think it was £1, if that, £1. Very cheap. And I have done this similar technique on it, and it looks really good. It looks completely different, obviously. It doesn't look different. I've painted a different colour. You know what I mean. So the reason I'm doing this sort of stippling motion is basically to get that white to look patchy. I want it to look consistent, because they don't look consistent, do they? Old stuff doesn't look consistent. It does go kind of patchy. It has areas where there's more white, areas where there's more brown. Again, you could build up that patina around the base if you wanted to. If you wanted to add more brown around the bottom, you could go back in with brown, or you could go in with brown wax, because it's not quite so pigmented. I might try that around the bottom and see how that looks. But just that slight bit of... So that's the side that hasn't had any white on it. What is going on with the lighting here today? Is it because... So that's only one coat and no white. And then that's 2 coats with that tiny bit of white dry brushed on it. I wish the lighting was better. It's gone really dark here and overcast. I think it's about that time of the year where I need to get the old ring light out. It's stored right up there on my top shelf, because all summer I haven't needed it. I've got a very, very good natural lighting in here, but clearly not today. Winter, isn't it? Winter months are coming. So there you go. You can see a slight bit of the mottled brown. Again, you can build up the white as to be as prominent or as subtle as you like. And if you're not confident doing dry brushing, try a bit of white wax, because it kind of gives you the same effect, but it's not quite as obvious sometimes. So that's my live. That's my 38 minutes and 58 seconds of my live this week. I will also be live on my own YouTube channel tomorrow. So if you watched last week's live on my YouTube channel, you know that I started out transforming IKEA stool for my kitchen to make it tie in with the rest of the decor. It's red, it's rustic. It looks like it's been thrown down the stairs and dragged across the floor, which is exactly my style. The bench in the background, Joanne, is going to be my YouTube video this week, and I am loving it. And I've also used purple on it. I don't use purple. Very, very rarely will I get purple out. But I've used purple, and I am absolutely loving it, especially with cobalt blue. I'll give you a little... You can't really see the purple on the bit that you can see. The purple is down here by my foot. Can you see it? So it's sort of like an ombre effect. So we've got darker down here. but it's had lots and lots of paint washes, so it's all watered down paint that I've been using, pretty much. So if you want to see how I've done that, tune into my YouTube channel and make sure you hit subscribe, because that'll tell you when the video goes live. Tomorrow I'll be live at 1 o'clock UK time, which is 8 AM EST, and I'll be continuing on with my little rustic step stool for us vertically challenged people. Vertically challenged people. I have IKEA stools dotted around my house because I can't reach things. So take care. Thanks for joining me. Have a lovely day and see you next time. Bye.